Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas Tutora. Welcome to Tutora Time. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, made a statement that if the government is going to raise taxes, that he would like an itemized list of what they're spending that money on. The comment is getting a lot of blowback because people are saying, what is a wealthy CEO who took bailout money from the government doing, telling us that he needs an itemized list? Let's push that aside for a second because it's really not relevant on some level. What is relevant is, what is the government spending our money on? I think an itemized list of where the government is spending money is the least the taxpayers are entitled to. Does anybody else have this feeling since Joe Biden has been president that we're just getting raked over the coals? They are going to raise taxes on everybody. They say they won't, but once they raise them on the rich, once they raise them on corporations, those tax increases are just going to get passed along in higher prices to the consumer. We see it already. Gas prices have gone up, lumber is up, tin is up, copper, aluminum. Some have tripled in cost since Joe Biden has been elected. Our tax money is being spent on ridiculous things like critical race theory, imaginary systemic racism, and recently Kamala Harris just announced that there's $300 million going to the governments of Central America to help them solve the problems of why those countries are so poor and people are leaving in the first place. So what that really means is that Kamala Harris and the Democrats just gave $300 million in kickback and corruption money to corrupt officials in Central America to pocket. Does any other business run like this? No. Politicians, and truthfully from both parties, should really be ashamed of themselves because they're busy passing policies and raising taxes, and they have no skin in the game. They have no consequence whatsoever. Listen, I could run a successful business or I could run a government if you just let me spend whatever I want and run up the debt on other people. It works like this. AOC has some ridiculous harebrained idea, and because she's in Congress, she gets to promote it and try to get public funding from it through tax money. So we're just dumping our hard-earned money down rat holes and pet projects of politicians who are just getting rich in the process. The salary of a congressman or a senator is $186,000 a year. But yet they're worth millions. Many of them go to Washington with no money whatsoever or just an average salary, and they walk away multimillionaires. How exactly does that work? Well, one of the ways it works is because in Congress, you're not subject to insider trading laws. You know, the laws that other citizens have to obey when it comes to insider trading? Congress members don't. So while they're busy passing bills and getting infrastructure and doing whatever their pet projects are, they also know what companies are getting the money and they also know where to invest. And this is how they're getting rich. People talk about term limits a lot, and I've always been kind of hesitant. I could see the point. But unless there's term limits for lobbyists and non-elected officials, if you have term limits on elected officials, all you're doing is handing power over to the permanent government that remains unelected. But with all the corruption that's going on now, and the way the left is trying to turn America into a fascist country by silencing political opposition, I think it's time for term limits. We may have to do it across the board, sweepingly, even for unelected officials, but this is outrageous. People who are just trying to hold on to power at all costs will now silence the voice of their political opponents. If we had term limits, we probably wouldn't be able to do that because people are not there long enough and they know they can't hold on to their power forever.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm being fleeced because they're spending $65 million a week on illegal immigrants at the border, while at the same time, they're raising taxes on American citizens to pay for the benefits and the money being spent on illegal immigration. It's completely absurd. There's no accountability, and our country is being driven into the ground. Our job as American citizens, yes, we pay taxes for certain basic things, but we're not supposed to be paying taxes to fund harebrained ideas like critical race theory and all these other programs they want to institute. They're instituting critical race throughout the military. All that really means is a chunk of money that go to academics and consultants so they could pretend that they're instituting some kind of program throughout the military to combat imaginary systemic racism. Oh, they may find a person here or there that they'll say has to be released, and that will justify their expenditure of millions, tens of millions of dollars. They're all getting rich in the process, make no doubt about it. I think the law should be that if the politicians can't balance the budget, then they no longer get benefits. They don't get their benefits from when they retire, their permanent pension that they get after having served in Congress. If you leave the country in debt, should you really be entitled to any benefits from that government? Most politicians are just out of control people on a spending spree with your credit card. We need to revamp the entire system because paying 50% of our salary to taxes, right now you're working about 3.5 months just to pay your taxes. 3.5 months out of every year. So January, February, March, and half of April, every morning you get up and go to work on those days, that money goes to the government. And they waste it and spend it on ridiculous things. Yeah, Jamie Dimon, you need an itemized list, and we all need an itemized list. And please don't tell me that it's up to the rich to pay their fair share. The wealthy and people who are building industry provide jobs and infrastructure. Just by their existence, people have to work there. There's food companies that have to serve people's transportation. It builds neighborhoods. It affects society in so many ways. And by the way, no matter how much money you have, you worked for it. You're entitled to it. It's yours. It's not the government's job to come in and steal from you, basically, and take your money and give it to somebody else, or to just dump it into ideas that they think are useful when they're really meaningless, childish, and absurd. How many government programs over the last 40 years have actually been successful and have actually brought anything to fruition? Let's get the government out of our way and let the people of America rule their own country. I'm Nicholas Tutora. I'll talk to you again soon on Tutora Time.